Real live draft review. Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty Show. And today we are going to review my Turtle League's draft from a Rebuilder'S perspective. I am rebuilding hardcore in this league. And so I controlled a few first rounders, 3 first rounders to be exact, as well as 3 seconds going into this draft of the 2025 rookies. And then I'm going to go over the other picks and some of the moves some of the other managers made as well. And so if you are rebuilding, this hopefully will help you navigate the first round and second rounds of your upcoming rookie drafts. We are just nearing, we are at, I think, the 305 right now. So we are smack dab in the middle of this draft. And let's bring up the draft board for you. Here we go. And so you can see I'm there at the 101 pick. I took Ashton Genty. Now my squad had literally, these are my assets players wise. I had Justin Herbert, Rashee Rice, Rome Odunze, and David Njoku, you could say. Those are the only players worth anything really on this squad. And then I had a bunch of dart throws after that. And then I had 3 firsts in this draft, the 101, 108, and 110. Then I also had the 201, 205, and 208 picks going into this draft. I also have a couple of 4th rounders as well. And so you can see there, pick is at, technically it's Brady Flash. He acquired S. Frosty's pick there, the 306, in the 3rd round of our draft. That's where we're sitting at right now. And so again, I had the 101, 108, and 110, but I'm rebuilding, and I just had 2 26 firsts and a couple 27 firsts. So I'm looking to accumulate first rounders, honestly. And with Ashton Genty, though, as great as he is as a rookie prospect and surefire of a hit, everybody says he is, being that he goes to the Raiders and they really don't have much else in the running back room. They traded for Geno Smith, who isn't like a super gunslinger. So it's obvious that Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly are going to slam the ball many, many a times with Ashton Genty. Probably get a lot of catches as well. So yes, I love getting Genty on a rebuilding team, but before I drafted him, I entertained some offers, and one of them was from Hergot. The first offer he threw me was the 105 and 107. He had both of those picks, and I think a 2nd rounder he threw in there. He also offered me something that was a little more interesting than that. It was the 105 and a 26 first. Now the 26 first was owned by Fossboss, who you can see here it was 3rd to last, making it likely that it would be at least a top 5 pick. I don't know if Fossboss will make the playoffs this upcoming year, so I could have gotten the 105 and a top 5 26 pick for the 101. Now, he offered 27 second on top of it. I actually countered asking for another second on top of it, and he didn't care for that. Hergot felt it was a little too steep for him, declined it. I was like, fine, I kind of want to get Genty anyway, so boom, I just went ahead and smashed Genty. So the idea there is, yes, I wanted to split the asset. However, the point is that when I eventually hope to be contending, I'm probably going to be just circling back and trying to acquire somebody like Genty to help myself contend. So I really look at it like, now, like I had 0 running backs on my roster. Now I can have Genty as my huge RB1 and he'll make up the difference for not having as great of an RB2 on my squad. So I can kind of just go fishing for an RB2 now, and I don't have to, like, if I trade it back, then maybe I'd end up with a couple of running backs that were okay, but not as high end prospects. Like, I could have traded back and ended up drafting Caleb Johnson and RJ Harvey, or Emeka Kabuka in that range. The problem with this class is that it's hard to be a true rebuilder because the running backs are so good. And, generally when you're rebuilding, you like to grab the wide receivers or quarterbacks, but this draft isn't that great in those positions. Not that Cam Ward sucks. He's fine, and so is Jackson Dart. It's after those two that you get into some murky waters, and so there's not as surefire. It's not like last year's class, put it that way. And then the 26 class is already projected to have better quarterbacks as well. So that's why I was looking at potentially doing that deal where I would have gotten a probable top 5 rookie pick next year, and I could have grabbed a quarterback, but I'm probably not making the playoffs anyway, and so I'm going to have my own top 5 26 pick. I could easily grab a quarterback with that, or shop the pick if I look like if these guys all pan out. Then I might be able to think I could be a contender next year. Then I flip the pick for a veteran quarterback, whatever. Point being is that I ended up going Genty. It's really, really hard to trade such a surefire asset. I've seen teams, and put it this way, going back a couple of years, I've seen teams succeed who were rebuilders, and I thought personally, looking at it from the surface level, that they probably should have just split Bijan into a couple of assets, but they went ahead and they drafted Bijan anyway, and since then, it's proven that they've done quite well still in those rebuilds. And so from my perspective now, I see the similar situation, and I'm just going to grab Genty. The point is that really, if it comes mid-season or near the end of the season, and I really want to just get some draft picks, Genty's probably going to be worth pretty similar to what he is right now, in that I think that I probably can still get 2 firsts for Genty at any point over the next year. All right. He's a 101. He's going to hold his value. He'd have to have an atrocious season. It's going to be really hard to do that with the amount of volume that he's going to be getting for the Raiders. All right. So after I picked, the next guy up here is Chupis, and he's a monster Tennessee Titans fan. And so it was pretty obvious to me. He had already taken Cam Ward in a previous league's draft at 102, so I knew he was going to take Cam Ward here. And you can argue the players 102 through 105, 106 in my mind. Whether you take Ward, Hampton, Hunter, or McMillan, even Travion Henderson, you can throw in there. Any of those guys, if you have a little bit of a conviction on any of those guys, you want to take Henderson over Hampton, and you really want a running back, go ahead and take Henderson 102. I wouldn't, but you're totally fine doing that. If you think Henderson's going to hit harder than Hampton, go ahead. If you want a wide receiver, go ahead and pick your favorite between Hunter and McMillan. If you want a quarterback and need that, go ahead and take Cam Ward. Personally, again, I'm not leaning that way because I don't think Cam Ward has an elite level profile, meaning that I don't know that he can actually make it up into the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks dynasty-wise. It's going to take a lot. It's going to he doesn't profile like Jaden Daniels, so he doesn't have quite that rushing ability. I'm not saying he can't run at all, but he doesn't run like Jaden Daniels, and so I find it hard for him to see him getting that high, I guess, in dynasty rankings. So, what's up? Who's that? That's got to be Travis. What's up, Travis? All right. So Tampa checking in the house. Nice. All right. So after Titans fan took Cam Ward, not shocking at all. He needed a quarterback anyway, so it totally made sense for him to do it roster construction wise. Then we had the DeLorean up, who had traded previously last year and gotten Foss first. That ended up being the 103. So the DeLorean, big Bears fan there, he jumped on Omarion Hampton to fill into his backfield. He already had a couple of running backs, so I was a little surprised he didn't go wide receiver, either Hunter or McMillan, which excited me because I was sitting with, again, remember, I was sitting with the 108 and 110. Oh, Havdi, what's up? I got a buddy down in Tampa that always said, "What's up, Buttercup?" Good to see you in the house, checking this out. Havdi is here. He finished in third last year in this league, and he's quite active. So let me know if you got any thoughts. Ryan, just chime in. I'm more than happy to answer your questions and tell you I do like the Dylan Sampson pick you just took at the 303, by the way. So, yeah, Hampton went at the 103. So I was sitting at the 108 and 110. And now to break down, this is the advantage of breaking things down ahead of time so you kind of get some tiers in mind. Remember, I was sitting on the 108, 110, but also I had the 201 and 205 and 208. So now at the 104, Foss was sitting on the 104 and 202 picks. Now, to some, there's definitely a tier divide after the 110, 111 picks, I'd say. And there's also a tier divide, I'd say, around 107 or 108, depending on where you put Judkins and Ibuka. Even Jackson Dart you can throw in there possibly if you really need a quarterback, or if your league is quarterback heavy. That's also important too to know. This league is a little more quarterback heavy, as in that they value the quarterbacks more. And part of that is because a couple of teams in this league have decided to go in on the quarterback horde strategy. One of them, and I'll bring it up for you here just to illustrate what I'm talking about in the quarterback horde ball game here. MSB Joy, she has one of my friend's wives here. She is no slouch. You might laugh, but she is no slouch. She is sitting on Penix, Drake May, Geno, and Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. And I tried all offseason before the draft to try and acquire one of these quarterbacks because I'm just sitting on Justin Herbert again at quarterback. Now, I do have Joe Flacco and Mason Rudolph as well. So if if things fall right, one of those guys will be starting going into the season. And they got potential. I mean, I don't know about Rudolph now with Pickens gone, but Flacco definitely likes to sling it, so I don't mind either of them as my quarterback too, to be fair. And point being, though, back to the quarterback horde here, Penix, May, Geno, and Trevor Lawrence, I mean, it would serve her probably better construction-wise to get off one of these quarterbacks or try and tier up at one of the quarterbacks, try and make a push for one of the elite 4 or 5 quarterbacks, get into some Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, Hurts, Lamar Jackson, or Josh Allen, try that route. But to sit on 4 quarterbacks, I mean, like, what is she doing with Geno Smith? Like, when is Geno Smith ever going to start for her, right? And then in the meantime, you got to make a roster or a lineup decision every single week between May, Lawrence, and Penix. I don't want to mess with that. Like, make it cut and dried for you for having 2 quarterbacks. Because, like, the point being with quarterbacks, as good as some matchups seem, your quarterback might not be throwing the ball at all in the second half of the game. Like, if you've got Michael Penix, for instance, right? And they're blowing out Carolina. Well, Bijan's going to probably get 15 carries in the second half. Penix might only throw the ball 4 or 5 times. And even though it was a great matchup against Carolina, Penix ends up with 200 yards, 1 touchdown on the day, and the Falcons run away with it, winning 35-10. Meanwhile, Bijan puts up 200 yards and a couple touchdowns, right? That's my point. As good as matchups look quarterback-wise, you never can really predict when the game turns into a shootout or when the team is trailing, because conversely, maybe Carolina jumps out to the lead and you put Penix on your bench and started Lawrence and May, right? Then Penix is sitting on the bench, but he throws it 30 times in the second half alone, and he ends up with 400 yards that week. Well, then you just missed out on it, right? So what I'm advocating for in my teams mostly is to try and have just one main quarterback and then a second guy that I'm going to be starting generally most weeks. And then, you can have a couple guys on your bench. I do try to roster as many backup quarterbacks as well, because they pop in value when they finally get a start. So that's her team. So she's quarterback hoarding. And then you also have, who's the other team here that has the 4 quarterbacks? Hergot is sitting on McCarthy, Mahomes, Hurts, and now he wasn't the one I was thinking of. Where is it? Not Warren. Yeah, the DeLorean. There it is. The DeLorean sitting on Caleb, Justin Fields, Stroud. No, he wasn't it. Yeah, I think it's Hergot, because he ended up drafting Jackson Dart. So that was his 4th quarterback. That was Hergot that I was thinking of. So you got 2 teams now with 4 good quarterbacks. And so that shows that this league is valuing quarterback a little more than some other leagues might. And so that's something you want to consider when drafting, when positioning, when thinking about drafting Cam Ward and Jackson Dart in the first rounds. Jackson Dart sometimes falls to the second round. So that's where I'm getting at, is you have to look at the quarterback situation. It's definitely valuable in super flex leagues. You don't want to overpay for them, but in some leagues, the market dictates the value, right? Certain leagues, I've seen Brock Purdy go for a second rounder, okay? Even though it's super flex, it was more wide receiver heavy, okay? And so it was basically Purdy for, was it Pickens? No, I think it was a little better wide receiver than Pickens. But anyway, my point is Purdy really wasn't as valuable to that guy's team, and Purdy was his 4th quarterback. Wasn't his 4th, but one of his 4 quarterbacks. All right. So that was a more wide receiver heavy league. This one, more quarterback value. So what I went ahead and did was I had the 108 and 110. I flipped the 108 and 110 and got the 104 and 202. Now you might think that that's not that fair. I moved up 4, dropped down 4 picks, and didn't have to give anything on top of it. But when you break down the tiers, that 110 pick is in a higher tier than the 202. And the 110 pick, I could see Fossboss possibly looking at making sure that he got himself Jackson Dart. Right now, we'll see shortly how that falls apart for Fossboss, unfortunately, because I went ahead and did that deal, jumped on Travis Hunter, because I like Hunter more than Tet. And I wanted to have another receiver to build around. Again, I had Roma Dunze and Rishi Rice only. And I saw Travis Hunter out there and really wanted to jump on him. I like Hunter a little more than Tet in PPR leagues. I think that Hunter has the ability to rack up 100 catches possibly in a season. Just in the way Jacksonville sets up their offense, he's going to be more in the role. Not that he's going to be running screens like a running back like Chris Godwin does, but I think he's going to be more in that role, moving around the offense, whereas Brian Thomas is going to be that true X out on the outside, that Mike Evans role. He's going to put up monster numbers in that role for Jacksonville. But I think Hunter could actually even be one that gets more targets, possibly, than Thomas eventually. Maybe not rookie season, but second and third season, especially if Hunter eventually gives up playing defense or very minimally plays defense. So that's where I was at the 104. I jumped on Hunter. Then we had the DeLorean grabbing Tet McMillan, then, who fell to him. The DeLorean needed definite help at wide receiver. Again, it wasn't the DeLorean. It was Hergot. I'm sorry. Hergot grabbed Tet McMillan, which was just probably the best value for him. Hergot's got a pretty stacked roster. As I mentioned, the quarterbacks, then he's sitting on, he was sitting on Breece Hall, and who else does he have here? Well, he just had Breece Hall and Najee. He's moving his way up the ladder. He had been the rebuilder last year and hit on a number of the rookie picks from last year's class. As you can see here, he's got Marv, Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors. Okay, so he really built up from last year's class. He drafted McCarthy, and then he's got Mahomes and Hurts. So he's pretty well stacked up, and he added to that wide receiver room with Tet McMillan. Now, it came to the 106, and Brady Flash moved up, grabbing, I believe it was with Fossboss made a move. He moved back, and then what the trade was that was very questionable was Fossboss was picking at 107, and it actually was Hergot's pick. Hergot had the 107. Fossboss gave him essentially what was the 110 and Derrick Henry to move up to the 107 to get Quinshon Judkins. Now, I'm not opposed to moving up in a draft, and I'm not opposed to trading off of an old running back, but an old running back like Derrick Henry, all right, a running back like Derrick Henry, and I don't know why it's not highlighting Judkins, because he made those picks, Fossboss. It's not, there we go. There's Fossboss's picks. I was highlighting the DeLoreans. My apologies. Okay, so Fossboss here, he had the 108 and 110 that I had traded him, and he decided to give up Derrick Henry to jump up to the 107. Now, if he was moving up to make sure that he grabbed Jackson Dart, I could understand because of the quarterback value, again, being higher in this league. But to just move up from the 110 to grab Judkins, like 110, he could have gotten Caleb Johnson or RJ Harvey possibly, right? So I don't understand that move. I guess he really liked Judkins, and that's what he wanted to do. And so Hergot reaped the benefits of that, because then he grabbed Caleb Johnson. Hergot then grabbed Jackson Dart at the 110 and got Derrick Henry. So he basically got Dart and Henry for Quinshon Judkins. So I would take that all day. And so Hergot, again, added to his quarterback coffin there. Now he's got 4 good quarterbacks. He has Dart. He does have Neighbors, so he's got that stack there. So again, now he's got 4 quarterbacks in Mahomes, Hurts, McCarthy, and Dart. And you know, if he wants to hang on to McCarthy and Dart, he could trade Hurts or Mahomes for a superstar at another position. He could keep Mahomes and Hurts and just flip whichever one is more valuable at that point between Dart and McCarthy. We don't know when Jackson Dart will actually get his opportunity this season. They've already said that Russell Wilson's going to start the year, but that doesn't mean that by the end of September, Brian Daboll's looking to get his rookie, his guy, into the lineup. And I could see that happening as soon as, the beginning of October for Dart. And again, he has Malik Neighbors, so he's got that stack going. So you may want to hang on to Dart and flip McCarthy. We'll see. Doesn't matter. It gives him plenty of options, though. That's the main point here. All right, so again, we had Fossboss grabbing back-to-back running backs, so he got youthful at the running back position, getting out of Henry, but the way he did so, I don't really love, right? Then it was MSB Joy, the quarterback hoarder. She grabbed RJ Harvey with her pick at the 109. Harvey obviously moved his way up the boards with landing in Denver. Solid pick there when now running back in the Broncos offense. Then we got to Havdi, who didn't have his pick. Havdi didn't have a pick until the second round here. Havdi's got a solid squad, so he didn't necessarily have to make some moves. Now he's hurting a little bit at quarterback considering the situation with Anthony Richardson, so I'm looking forward to Havdi trying to make some quarterback moves. You see here he did grab Tyler Shook at the 210 pick, which we'll get to later. And for now, we are moving on to Kyle, the commish. Kyle didn't have his pick in the first. Frosty's had it, so you can see some moving. A lot of trading in this league. Love it. Frosty's went ahead and grabbed Buka, sitting at the 111 to add to his wide receiver room. And then we had the champ, Mark, who has not picked yet. He doesn't need any picks, honestly. He's sitting on Kyler, Jordan Love, and Stafford at quarterback. Running backs, Kamara, Jacobs, Gibbs, and Bijan. So Gibbs and Bijan, the main running backs. And then his wide receiver room, this is the champs team. I'll highlight it there. His receiver room is London, Higgins, A.J. Brown. He's got Flowers, and then Laporta at tight end. So solid squad there for Mark going forward. He'll be a contender this year, no doubt. All right. Then we'll move to the top of the second round, back to my team, because I was sitting on the 201 and 202 picks, both of them, right? And again, I mentioned I had Justin Herbert. So Fossboss was looking to get back into some action again, and he had Lad McConkey, somebody who I was interested in. I had made a couple offers this offseason to try and acquire him, but he wasn't interested in those. Now, though, that the 201 and 202 were sitting on the clock after Colston Loveland went, you get into that group of wide receivers like Matthew Golden, Trey Harris, Luther Burden, Jaden Higgins. Those four, as well as Tyler Warren, were sitting on the board, and Fossboss wanted in. And I mentioned that I'd be interested in trading one of my picks there, the 201 or 202. I was looking more so to, package something with future picks. I've got a bunch of second and third rounders in the future, but he was willing to give up Lad McConkey, and therefore I was willing to give up the 201 and 202 to get into some Lad. I can do 2 seconds for Lad McConkey, even if they're the beginning of the second round and they're the finishing edge of a tier. I would say this tier goes to like the 205-ish range with those wide receivers. Now you can argue Scattaboo and even Bashul Tootin moving up into that range now with some people's rankings. And Fossboss went ahead and grabbed Matthew Golden He's a Packers fan, so I wasn't surprised there. But then he grabbed Jalen Milroe, and that was a little bit of a shock. Milroe's pushed down the board with him landing in Seattle behind Sam Darnold. But there is the case to be made that Milroe is more talented with his wheels. Now, it depends how good he ends up being able to throw the ball at the NFL level. But, if Darnold struggles, that contract that they signed him for may have been 3 years, but they have an out after year one on that deal. So if Milroe ends up coming in and performing with his wheels, that could be a super high. It was a super high upside swing, taking him at the 202, but one that could pay off for Foss. So we had those two go, Matthew Golden and Jalen Milroe, basically for Ladd McConkey. All right, then we had Brady Flash grabbing Tyler Warren at the 203, right there. Then S. Frosties was back on the clock at the 204, having acquired this pick from Brady Flash in the offseason, and he grabbed Trey Harris, my favorite of these four wide receivers in the tier there: Golden, Harris, Burden, and Higgins. Then I was back up at the 205, and I had my decision. It was between Burden and Higgins, or to go Scattaboo, or even Tyler Shook to grab a quarterback, which I considered. But I went ahead and went back to my rookie rankings, and Luther Burden I had ranked in a tier above Jaden Higgins all off season. Now you can argue Higgins has moved up. It's hard to say with Higgins' situation there in Texas with the Texans. Of course, they drafted Jalen Noel as well, his college teammate, and now that's both opposite the target hog of Nico Collins. So it's hard to say what target share they get. I lean towards Ben Johnson and him drafting Luther Burden in the second round. I'm hoping that is to fill the Amon-Ra St. Brown role, obviously, in Chicago. We'll see how that pans out. DJ Moore and Rome Odunze are there already. Now I have Luther Burden and Rome Odunze, so maybe I'll try and kick the tires on Caleb Williams. That would make sense if I'm betting on both Chicago wide receivers. So I got possibilities there. But anyway, I liked Burden over Higgins. Higgins then went to Frosties with the very next pick. And so Frosties added to his wide receiver room, which is now, let's take a look at it real quick. Frosties' wide receiver room prior to the draft had some uglies. There we go. CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Waddle, and Jacoby Myers. So yeah, he could use a little bit of help. Obviously, CeeDee is more than solid. But then with Ayuk and Waddle and Myers, you've got some question marks there. I mean, Myers is somebody who I'm really solid on. I love having him as my 5th or 6th wideout, but as your number 3 or 4 wideout here, that's a little touchy. So I can understand Frosty's wanting to grab wide receivers here in the second round. First round, he grabbed Ibuka, so he went and hit the receivers hard this year. He's sitting on Burrow and Nix, and then Rodgers too, and he's got Mixon and Kyron Williams and Chase Brown at running back. So Frosty's building a strong case for contention this season here. So nice job there, Colin. All right, Matt Warren was up next with his first pick, and he decided to jump into the Shedeur Sanders circus there at the 207. Sanders getting a little bit of love on Twitter with his camp performance so far, but who knows what that really means. I mean, they're all just in shorts and a jersey right now, no contact. Who knows what that means? But he jumped on Shedeur Sanders. Then I was up again at the 208, and it really came down to Tootin, Scattaboo, or Shook for me. Rather than trading back, I just decided to jump on my guy, Bashul Tootin, He's looked good in camp so far. Again, it's just camp, but I like his opportunity with Jacksonville. I went with the Jaguars offense over the Giants offense basically with this pick. I think that Tootin could get more red zone opportunities in the Jags offense than Scadaboo with the Giants offense. Then Kyle jumped on Scadaboo after I passed on him, and after that, Havdi hopped onto the quarterback, Tyler Shook, obviously making news this week. Just yesterday, 2 days ago, it was Saturday, yes, that Derek Carr, with his shoulder issues, decided to hang it up at age 34. And who knows if he'll have surgery or decide to make a comeback. I don't know. But for the time being, the Saints quarterback room is Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shook, and Jake Haener. So Havdi jumped into that little circus going on there for New Orleans. That is scary. And as a Bucs fan, I am more than happy to see that going on in New Orleans. Then we had Frosties with another pick here, taking Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon, going to the Rams as their tight end. And then Havdi was back up on the clock. He jumped on Jack Besh, new wide receiver for the Raiders. Solid pick there. Besh is someone I have not been able to get any shares of yet, but that's probably, again, because I just like Tootin or Scadaboo or Shook more right now in that little tier, and people have been grabbing Besh anywhere from like the 207 to 212 range. Honestly, I really haven't seen him fall to the third round at all. Then we got back to the top of the third round, and Havdi was up again. He's got a number of picks here. So he had the 212, took Besh, 301. Let me highlight it for you here. 212, 301, he grabbed Jaden Blue, who definitely has a shot there in Dallas to be the guy. I mean, Javonte Williams is just not exciting at all anymore. He's proven to be simply average at best running back. So Jaden Blue with definitely an opportunity there. Then Chupas jumped on Devin Neal, and right after that, Havdi grabbed Dylan Sampson. So he went a couple running backs there. If we look at Havdi's roster now, Havdi is pretty solid all around, again, except for quarterback, where he did help himself with Shook. But Anthony Richardson, obviously a question mark. Lamar is, of course, more than solid. At running back, he is sitting on Connor, Hubbard, Tyron Tracy. So not awesome, but doable. And then at wide receiver, he's got Keon Coleman, Stephon Diggs, Judy, Devontae Smith, Chris Olave. So no superstars at wide receiver, but definitely above average guys in Judy, Devonta Smith, Chris Olave, and then a couple of veterans in Diggs, and who knows where Amari Cooper will sign. And then a possible sleeper in Marvin Mims. And then we all know the disappointing tale of Quentin Johnston so far. At tight end, he's got Andrews. So, yeah, we're looking at a contender there with Havdi. We'll see if any of his draft picks hit and help that out. All right, back to the top of the board here. Then we had Brady Flash with his own pick, taking Mason Taylor. I like Taylor, like that pick. If you're splitting hairs between Taylor and Ferguson, I guess I'd lean Taylor just because I think he has less to battle there. Tyler Higbee is still there with the Rams, so we'll see if Ferguson can beat him out. Eventually he will, but for this first season, who knows. Then we had the DeLorean on the clock, and he nabbed Ollie Gordon, the running back from Oklahoma State, who had a down season last year, but had that monster 2023 season where he went around 2,000 yards on the ground. So he's now in Miami as potentially their goal line back. With Devon Achane, maybe they want to take a little less pounding for him in goal line situations, and maybe Gordon can capitalize on that, or just an injury from Achane. We'll see if Gordon can beat out Jalen Wright as the second running back. They're different types of running backs. It was a surprising pick for me, but now it kind of makes sense in the fact that they don't want to be pounding. They don't want to be doing any QB sneaks with Tua, and they don't want to be pounding Devon Achane too much near the goal line. So anyway, that's where we're at in the Turtle League. That gives you a perspective from a rebuilder. So again, I was able to grab Genty at the 101, then Hunter at the 104. Then I traded the 201 and 202 for Ladd McConkey. So I added Genty, Hunter, and McConkey to my room of a rebuilder. I also grabbed Luther Burden and Bashul Tootin there as nice possible dart throws to see if they end up leading their rooms. Both are, their chances, right? They've got competition, both of them, but I think that with new regimes comes a new style, new plan for the offense, and those guys were drafted for a reason by their new coaching staffs, and I'm leaning into that route for success for my rebuild. All right, so leave any questions down in the comments. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe. We're going for 500 subscribers before the 2025 NFL season, so make sure you hit that subscribe button to help support the Birdhouse community. We'll have Matt English in the house probably tomorrow, and we'll be discussing the bottom line draft, I'm sure, which just got underway. It's a slow draft, so we'll see where we're at on that one. Who knows? This turtle draft just started yesterday morning, and look where we're at in the middle of the third round already. And there's been plenty of action. It's not like people are just making picks. So a lot of action. Now, it helped that it was a Sunday, of course, but yeah, we got the ball rolling there pretty quickly. So we'll see where we're at in the bottom line draft. But anyway, that'll be tomorrow with Matt English. And so thank you all for joining. And as always, remember, never stop working.